The Conversation Motivational Hour with your host, Minister Seon Rodney. The Conversation. Thank you for watching The Conversation Motivational Hour. We love you and cannot wait to see you in person.
All right, all right. Good night, everyone. Welcome to our date night with SGGR and team tonight. In the studio, we have Minister Tashana Giddings out of Queens, New York, one of the boroughs of the New York City. We have Minister Crystal Dundas, which is of Brooklyn, New York, yes, out of one of the borough of New York City, while we await two more Georgians to join us as we continue this segment. And nevertheless, yours truly, SGGR, is a part of Atlanta, Georgia. With that being said, tonight our topic is domestic violence. Yes, domestic violence is one of the growing epidemic that is growing, that is growing tremendously. It is skyrocketing around the world, and sometimes there is not enough solution and there are not enough bodies to cope and to address domestic violence. But tonight we're gonna put our minds and our thoughts and our information together, and we're gonna bring information, we're gonna bring nuances and nuggets that someone can receive a fortitude of strength, someone can be encouraged, and someone can be at the place to garner some strength. Someone gonna be at a place of understanding that domestic violence should not be their portion, and we're gonna help you to reposition yourself, recalibrate your mind to move from a recipient of domestic violence to be free. With that being said, I have also joined me is Minister Kimon All. She owns her own program, and she is gonna tell you more of our podcasts and our program and everything else. And seeing that she is one of our virgin appearance on this platform, The Conversation, I will start with her, and I think I butcher her first name, but she's gonna bring more clarity. Just forgive me for butchering your name, but we vibe like that, we kick it like that. We are friends and we are associates and we are colleague in this fraternity of broadcasting. I will start with Miss All tonight.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Doing well?
Hello, good night.
Evening.
How are you?
Good night. Good night. I'm doing well. Thank you. Minister Rodney, thank you so much for having me here on the show. Totally appreciate the opportunity to be with you and the fellow panel. I'm not sure if you all are co-hosts or panels, but it's nice to meet you and to share a platform with you. Yes, I am a minister at Regenerating Lives Ministry, and yeah, I mean, that's just one of the things. I try to do a little bit of everything. I am a part of one of the youth leader there, and do some other things as well. I am a teacher by profession within Gwinnett County here in Georgia, and I love what I do. I do have a nonprofit organization. It's called Positive Forces, and one of the things that we do is we have a radio show with You Choose Radio, and that is youchooseradio.com. And we do broadcast live on social media as well. So that's one of the things we do. So, yes, we are fellow broadcasters, Pastor Rodney. And yeah, just thank you for having me on the show. My co-host, one of my co-hosts, will be on as well, maybe within another 10 minutes or so. Pastor Dr. Wendy Mitchell, she'll be joining me as well.
Yes. So, can you tell us, Minister All, your time of the hearing of your podcast, and when you'll be broadcasting, the day and time?
Yeah, absolutely. We air every Saturday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. on, it's called the Positive Forces Show. I have three co-hosts. Yola Lewis is one, which you've met, and Pastor Dr. Wendy Mitchell is one, and Ryzen from out of Trinidad and Tobago. He's a gospel artist, gospel minister, and he's also a part of our show. He is the one that does the therapeutic aspect of it, talking about therapy. And Dr. Karen Stevenson, she's also a part of the show She's a licensed psychiatrist and also a fellow believer of the in the faith. So we do air on Saturdays from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So check us out. I think you'll enjoy the show, and it's not just a show; it's really ministry. It's light ministry. We do give people the opportunity to, have a relationship with God and just kind of give them different scenarios of life and how to get through it with the help of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And your church is New Generation and Fire, right?
Regenerating Lives Ministry. We are located,
Regenerative Life Ministry.
yes, we are in Conyers, Georgia.
And quickly, Minister Crystal, just let us know also for those who are connecting for the very first time. Let us know the name of your church and also the time of your service and broadcasting quickly, please.
Sure. My church that I attend is Soulness Christian Center, and it is located in Brooklyn, 1688 St. Mark's Avenue. And our services are 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock. So you are
Okay, and
welcome.
and that's a PKA minister. All that's Bishop Dundas' daughter.
Okay.
And they also, let me stick that in quickly. They also own a business. It's called BFF Printing. They
BBL.
own the printing, yes, a printing company.
Nice, nice.
So you can get your Palmer Familiar shipped from Brooklyn straight to you. I use them, and I did purposely use one of the product tonight. As you can see that my hat have my logo, and it
Oh,
was done by BFF Printing.
BB.
Quickly, Minister Tashana also is about radio personality. She is an author and author of an awesome book, and she just getting herself together to familiarize herself with her new phase and new architectural work and many more stuff to our new podcast that is already forthcoming. Minister Tashana, can you let us know of what's going on and what you have forthcoming?
Well, thank you, Sion, for having me. And I was going to ask if everything that you have on, if it came from the production company that Crystal runs, because I'm saying it's amazing when we can wear our own clothing,
I
right?
know, yes. That's
So
Oh,
that
great.
my
means
own
you're a
lapel,
big
my own
deal.
hat, my own cup, and I have my own watch.
You're on a different level. You're all decked out in you, so we can't miss you. But like you said, yeah, my name is Tashana. I am an author. I wrote my first book in 2019. It's called How I Discovered Jesus Christ is Real. It
Mm,
speaks of my relationship and the journey that I've been on with God and how I came to realize that He is real.
mm,
I have a podcast. The name behind me says The Insight Show. We talk about all things God. We give people an insight of how to live a relationship with God and how to live a life that is unlimited or limitless. And just to let them know that anything is possible with God. I work in the behavioral health environment. I am a not a social worker, but that's the area that I work in. I help those that have mental health challenges and they have the disease. I help them to find supportive housing so that they can keep their housing and maintain that stability. So, yeah, that's it about me.
I love that.
All right. Good night again, everyone. And you're here from this awesome panel. And I'm happy to be the only male among these precious gems and jewels. Oh, yes, God handmaids, and we are all the vessel of God. And we are also not only about the gospel, but we are all community minded. And the reason why, for me being taking 10 minutes off of the topic tonight for introduction and for familiarity of the platform and the businesses, because sometimes you may be gifted without an opportunity, and we
Right.
want to let you know where you can find such opportunities that you want to find yourself. Despite of your skill set, there is a place for you. Even being you have walked with God or you're still walking with God, there is a place for your skill set to be used. Tonight,
Mm,
our topic is going to be about domestic violence. While we await Dr. Michelle, as she make arrival probably the next 7 or 8 minutes to be a part of the panel. Nevertheless, tonight we're going to deal with domestic violence. Domestic domestic violence, as I said in the preambles, it's a growing epidemic around the world, and sometimes it's uncontrollable, and it's a demand coming from different aspects of understanding. There is a call for chaplains to address this issue. There is a call for pastors. There is a call for ministers. There are calls for those a part of positivity, whatever form of genre of music and entertainment that can be used to curb domestic violence. But there is an understanding that I have recognized in investigating through my spirit and through the natural eyes, that we also always focus on Minister All, Minister Dundas, Minister Giddings about the abuser, but we never focus on the person who meted out the abuse. So there is a platform, and there is programs, and there is everything surround the person who are the recipient of the abuse and the domestic violence. And what happened is that the person is left to go to find another victim. With that being said, I will decrease and my panel will increase. I will moderate this program tonight and let you guys bring forth all of your urgencies. That there will be nuggets, that someone will be strengthened, someone will be fortified, someone will be encouraged, someone will find a strength, someone will recognize that I can be identified with a thought, I can be identified with a concept, and tonight I will say no to that domestic violence environment. I'm going to start with Minister All, and then I'm going to go around. As I said, I'm going to moderate the program, and while my co-hosts tonight will bring the nuances and the nuggets, that someone going to walk out from such atmosphere, climate, and temperature. Because I always say, as my mantra to all my co-hosts, the mantra that I says is that one life is too much to lose to domestic violence. And our presence here tonight is to capture that person in time, that they would not be a recipient, that we would not embrace roses. We will not embrace wreaths, but we will embrace roses tonight. With that being said, I will hand over to Minister Hall.
All right. Well, domestic violence, man, domestic violence is a topic that is, it's kind of near and dear to my heart recently. It is it has increased. We know that since COVID-19, the statistics have increased tremendously. And if the DV counselors, the hotline, receive at least 20,000 calls per day
Mm.
in the US. 20,000 calls per day. And that is alarming. The statistics are real. And, many people would say, okay, domestic violence, what is that really about? And I used to do a little bit of case management, like Minister Giddings. Yes,
Yes.
I did case management in New York, and so I am familiar with speaking to individuals again, but that's not necessarily my background. But there is a hotline that can be utilized, and there's a text message that can be utilized as well if a lady or a man, because men are also being abused, feel that
Yes.
they are in a situation where they are experiencing domestic violence, there is help. Do not feel
Yes.
like you are responsible. Do not feel as if it is your fault, because there's so many different types of abuses within domestic violence that will allow the victim to feel as if they are responsible. There's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse, there is economic abuse, and there is different aspects of the abuse in itself. And sometimes you have emotional and you have psychological, and that can be misconstrued easily and misidentified. Doesn't matter if you feel as if you are a victim, if you feel, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of the different ways to identify if you are a victim. And we get into that. If you feel frightened or intimidated, terrorized, or even manipulated, wounded, humiliated, these are just some of the feelings that individuals that have experienced domestic violence or is experiencing domestic violence feel. And to just realize and remember that it's not your fault. And if your partner, your intimate partner, decides to give you a gift and tell you, this will, I'm sorry. Usually, if you hear that I'm sorry, you will hear it again. I always say, if you find yourself in a domestic violence situation, don't stay in it. Do not stay in it because it's not worth it. It's because your life can be at stake. Your life can be at stake. I have statistics here, and we can go through that, but I just wanted to open up with that. It is not your fault.
Yes, and good night, everyone. Also, we have just joined us no other than Pastor Dr. Wendy Mitchell, and she is a psalmist. She is a psalmist for more than, I think, more than 4 decades, more than 3 decades, and she's no stranger to us. And she, being a psalmist, being a pastor, being an entrepreneur, and being a part of our panel tonight, it brings to recollection part of my teaching last night, coming from the gospel fraternity mindset, where I said sometimes we sing to people, ride out the storm, God is with you. And we try to massage people to stay in domestic violence relationship because we massage them with that song, and we recognize that God would not be with them at the end of the storm, because we recognize inside we going to carry some nice roses, we carrying wreaths. Because what happens sometimes, we allow people to stay because one person in an understanding came out bat in hand at the end of domestic violence of yesteryear. We think it can be applied for today, but we can recognize that everyone is different. Every abuser mindset is different.
Yeah.
Every abuser courage is different.
Yes, yes.
Every abuser tolerance is different. So not because your mom stayed through that abuse, that she encouraged you to ride out the storm, God is with you, that you
Right.
will make it out like your mom.
Right.
Because probably your mom have a person that they met some abuse here and there, but then your daughter or whoever may be an continuous abuser day and night, and recognize that it's at the point that even she doesn't make it out alive, sometimes she make it out at the garbage can.
My.
Sometimes she make it out suffering from mental health. So with
Mm-hmm.
that being said, tonight, as we welcome you, Dr. Mitchell, I have with me Minister Giddings, Tashana Giddings, and Minister Crystal Dundas. Can you take a few minutes and introduce yourself, and then we're going to come back to you to deal with your part of domestic violence. We're going to go to Minister Crystal after you introduce yourself.
Well, bless the Lord, everyone. Thank you, Pastor Seon. It's good to see you. And thank you to Minister Kimon and the other ministers that are on the panel tonight. I am just a nobody that tries to tell everybody about somebody who can save them. Senior pastor at Regenerating Lives. We're located in Covington, Georgia. And I am also happen to be, I teach on domestic violence prevention. Um, and so it's in light of a few things that I've been seeing recently, I'm really alarmed that the voice of the church is somewhat quiet where this situation is concerned, and we're not dealing with the big gray elephant in the room. But I'm honored to be on the panel with you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you
Amen.
very much for gracing us with your awesome presence out of your busy schedule with the things that you're involving. And also, before I hand over to Minister Crystal, we want to thank you for those library that you're open in the beautiful country of Guyana. On behalf of all Guyanese, we just want to say thank you.
And God bless you, sir.
Minister Crystal, we just want you to add to us your nuggets and nuances towards domestic violence.
Yes. When Dr. Mitchell was talking about domestic violence, and the church doesn't really touch on these topics, it is very true. And because it's something that we are it's like it like when we let's just talk about like a marriage. When someone gets married, like especially in church, they feel very happy, and they kind of, if something like wrong happens in the marriage, they don't want to talk about it because it's kind of embarrassing that that they're going through something such as domestic violence within their Christian and loving relationship that was prayed over, that was I don't say ordained over. More so, it was already ordained in the heavens that this is the person that you marry, and all of a sudden there's domestic violence inside of church and inside of your relationship, and you're afraid to talk about it because you feel embarrassed. So what Dr. Mitchell was talking about is very true, because no one wants to hear, no one wants to be the poster child after their friends and loved ones see them as a strong woman or a strong man, and then you get into a relationship and you're getting beaten down, talking down to, abused. No one wants to go through that, but I think that it's very important to talk about it because it can help someone else, especially talking about it in church is a big factor, because when we learn about God, we're learned to love God, we're learned to adore Him and just worship Him, And the Bible says that we are made in His image and His likeness, and the Bible also said, "Would the Lord withhold any good thing from you?" And if you're getting abused, you're like, well, emotionally abused or physically abused or so verbally abused, you start to think if this was a mistake that you got into this relationship and got married. Like, you trust God with all your heart, then you get into a marriage or a relationship that you're dating, and now the person that you prayed to God for is now turned into something that you would probably pray against, because it's not a glorifying God kind of um, relationship, and you don't want to talk about it. But it is very important too, because in the Bible, not in the Bible, in this Christian walk, God wants us to lean on Him, so that He and depend on Him, even if it is something that was ordained in the heavens that you're supposed to marry this person and you aren't married. It's not a mistake. Some people on the other end is dealing with a lot of things on their side that they would never tell their partner, which is low self-esteem. We look at guys, be like, how can a guy have low self-esteem? It is very easy. Just because they look good on the outside doesn't mean what they're carrying on the inside matches up. To impress us women, they have to do more. They don't have a lot to impress with. They have their good looks, their haircut, or their hair braids, or their nice, well twisted dreads, and their clothes. That's really what they have to work with. For with females, we could change our hair every single day. We could put on new makeup, new lipstick, and all that stuff to impress. It's easy. But when it comes to a guy, they're dealing with much more. They have to lead a family. They have to have all the answers. They have to they have to defend the women that they're with. They have to do a lot. And sometimes they're not prepared for that because they came from a household that didn't prepare them to be prepared for the ladder of life. So then you don't know how they've been talked to, by their father, or if their father is around, or if their mother is around. So they have a lot, and sometimes they're dealing with a lot and don't know how to manage their frustrations. They don't know how to manage their anger. So they take it out on their wife. They take it out on their girlfriend and blame them for something that it's, yeah, say if they're rightfully blaming them, but it's not a conversation. It's, you did this to me, you made this happen, and hit you or talk you down. On the other end, for the female, too, the low self-esteem starts very early. From since you're in grade school, growing up, you're trying to match yourself with your friends, things like that. You get into adulthood, now it's even worse. So when God says that, like, we should know who we are in Christ. Outside of Christ, we're struggling to know who we are, because we try to be for God, and we also try to be for people, for the world, so to speak. We try to be accepted on both ends. But when God says, I made you, I created you just like this, but when you go outside of that, you don't really know who you are, because we know who we are in Christ, and in Christ gives us our total identity, but when we can't we can't support that thought with our own feelings and the thoughts, and then we have social media, which I'm slightly a fan of. It really does something to the brain that makes you feel less than you are. Then you start acting like that, less than you are. Now, someone who is an abuser, not by abuser by their environment, I should say. No one is born an abuser. Someone who's born by abuser by their environment, they're gonna play on that. They're going to they're going to they're going to see your vulnerability, which you should have in a way if that's your husband and stuff. Be careful with that. But they will play on it and say, oh, and use what you like told them and stuff, and to be an emotional abuser. So it's like a fine line between everything. But when it comes to God, He's the one who can change someone's heart. You can do all of the stuff that's that's popular to do and all those things, but there's a saying, and then I'll close it. But I'll do a comma with a long pause with this, is that, like, there's a thing that says a man cannot be kept unless he wants to be kept. So it's also the same way. If you want to change, you will change. If you want something, you will do it. If you want to be a husband, you would be a husband. You won't be an abuser. If you want to be a wife, you will be a wife. Whatever that comes with. We have to sometimes we have to look at, why is someone abusing me? Not blaming yourself, but more so trying to get a grip onto things, and like what Minister Hall say, and leave. Don't stay there and be like, it's my fault. Okay, go get some sort of help. So that's what I have to say.
Yes, and also we're going on over to Minister Tishana Giddings. We understand sometimes abusive start from a little pillow fight. The thing that starts off, Dr. Mitchell, Minister Hall, Minister Crystal Dunderson, Minister Tishana Giddings, the thing that one start off as a happy hour. Happy hour with the tasting. We talk about a pillow fight, a nice domino game, a nice card game for some likes and some water to drink, and it transcends into a bigger boom because the person who win is hitting you harder. They're looking for the soft spot that is continuous in your life. So sometimes we got to be very careful of the thing that start off of a happy hour sweet spot can end up to something that is bitter sour. That the Word of God says sometimes our teeth can eat sour grapes and be it. Minister Tashana Giddings, over to you.
Okay, so good night, everyone, again. Just to pick up from where Crystal left off, we often say, and she's right, for us to encourage the people that are being abused to leave, and to find a safe place, to get to a place of safety. Because the most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence is when he or she they try to leave. And I just want to let us know, like I was telling you earlier in the room that we were speaking, it's not as easy as we think it is. I would say most of the people that are being abused, their hope is to leave. They do desire to leave, but as Minister All was saying when she introduced the topic, there's so much happening behind the scenes. There's so much happening there whereby it can either be emotional, they're being manipulated emotionally or financially, or even to the point where if you leave, you will not find anyone else like me, and or if you leave me, I'm going to make sure you do not end up with anybody else. And as a single mother, not myself, but looking in the lens to a single mother or someone that is in that position, and their focus is, yes, I want to leave, but there are other things that are keeping me from leaving. I want to make sure that I am set before I leave. And a lot of times that can end up, you might not get the opportunity to leave, but I think that their desire is to leave. And to go to what Dr. Mitchell was saying, it is my opinion when she asked, when she stated that the church is very silent when it comes to these issues, and she's correct, absolutely. But I wonder if it's because of the fact that the black church per se, is it because we do not have the answers to what is being discussed, or do we feel like it is done in the home and so we should not have a say about it? And so we're not there yet where we can openly discuss domestic violence, especially in the church community, when you're of the understanding that we're all supposed to love God and we're called by God. And so when a man finds a wife, as Adam said in the beginning, she's the bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, and we become one. But then you see things be, as you're saying, it starts out, we're cool, and then you hit me, and then I think we're playing, and I hit you back, and the second blow comes harder than the first one, right? How do you address that? How do you go to your pastor or someone in the church community and say, this is what's happening in my home, and I do not know how to handle it. I don't know how to address it. And so that's what I want us to look at it from, because a lot of the times, scars run deep. We may have known John Doe as he sits with the pastor. He's very loving. He knows the Bible to a T. And when we were introduced or when we met, he was someone that I thought would have been my bright and morning star and all of these things that we come up with. But when we end up in a home together, and even the counseling may have been there, right? You may have gone through counseling, but not realizing that there is something that goes deeper than what is on the surface. And so you're left with, but how did you become you? Not realizing that that individual might not have dealt with the abuse of an abusive father or an abusive mother, or being taught constantly that you're a nothing and you're a nobody and you're never going to be anybody, or the insecurities and all of these environments that we grow up in, that young men grow up in, and it was never dealt with. They have never gone through the process of healing and deliverance. And so you may have said something that my mother said a couple of years ago, and it triggered me, not giving any excuses, but that started the whole thing. And now how do you handle that? So I don't feel like we're there yet as a body to say, well, okay, we can address this.
I love that. And also, sometimes the church is trapped with opinions, because we have to present also that marriage should not put asunder, that who God's joined together, no man put asunder. And because the church have to represent also that pillar, that, we try to, as I open up in the preamble, you could remember saying, right out the storm, God is with you. But also, they also is a point that we have to make sure that we have less cops coming before us. All right. And we have more people to make up the panels and to make up the board and to make up all the different departments of the church. Because if these people are coming before us in corps because we tell them to ride out the storm, and we cannot tell them about an early failure, because the early failure is taking your jump first. And you think that you would fail because you don't have the education, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you don't have the capacity to make it. But I want to run over you to Dr. Mitchell, that she's coming from both worlds, to explain to us tonight.
Thank you, Pastor Seon, and panel again. I think one of the reasons why the church does not handle this in the way that it's supposed to is because half of the times, a lot of the people that we look up to as leaders, a lot of them are actually abusers. You can't really spot an abuser.
Right.
And from experience as a former a victim of domestic violence, because the abuser does not look cruel and harsh, and the abuser is normally the charmer. He's normally the one that all the old ladies love. All the little children love them. They're sweet talkers, and and so even and when you do say to someone, "I'm being abused," they would never believe you. Um,
Right.
and I want to warn us briefly that when we use statements like "Why does she stay?" If we actually ask why she does not leave, it says that we think that the violence is her personal problem to solve. And if we are to get to the bottom of dealing with this issue, the whole community needs to be responsible for the health and well-being of every person in that community. Now, someone might ask the question, well, why does she stay? There are several reasons why a woman might choose to stay in an abusive relationship. There may be fear or threats, and the man might say, well, look, I will kill you, kill your children, kill your mother, kill your dog if you leave, you know. And so she may within herself feel as if she's doing everything to protect herself and her family and others by staying. Sometimes it's a case where the woman does not have any money or any place to go,
Yep.
and that would definitely apply, especially if she was also being abused financially. And being abused financially simply means that she has no control over her money. There would be issues where the person might go to work and her paycheck, she cannot touch it because the abuser takes every dime of it. If she has to buy deodorant, she has to ask for a stipend to buy deodorant. If she has to buy a Metro card, if she has to buy, you know, feminine napkins, she has to go and get money. That's all financial abuse because he's taking every dime of her money that she has worked for. So she might stay there because she has no money or no place to go. It may be that she has no protection. Maybe she doesn't have anyone to defend her. Maybe, some of us have brothers and cousins and uncles that would come to our defense if they hear that we are being abused. Maybe in this instance, that person might not have any protection at all. And then, of course, comes the big S word, shame. Um,
Mhm.
she may begin to take all of that upon herself, blaming herself. It's my fault. I deserve it, which we hear a lot of time from people who are abused. The next major issue as to why a woman might stay in an abusive relationship is because of religious or cultural beliefs. People may feel it's their duty to stay together because of the culture. We have the Indian culture, the Iranian culture, the Muslim cultures, yada, yada, etc. And leaving might cost her the loss of her entire family. She may be cut off from everyone because that is a part of their religious or cultural beliefs. So she stays in order to keep duty and to keep the marriage together. She's staying again because maybe she's hoping for a change. And this is one of the reasons why we end up in the cycle of violence. We have the honeymoon phase where everything is great and hunky dory, and then we have the building up phase where the abuser begins to snap and get really angry and agitated, looking for a fight. And then we have the explosive phase, where it doesn't have to do anything, but he's just angry and just wants to hit out. And then he goes back into the honeymoon phase, into the "I'm so sorry. If it wasn't what you did, I wouldn't have done it. But I love you. I promise you, baby, I wouldn't do it again." So it's a cycle. So the abuser does not remain an abuser 24/7.
Right.
And so it's hard to really spot a narcissistic behavior that is happening coming from an abuser. And last but not least, that person might feel guilty about leaving the children with no father. A lot of people stay in relations because they want to make sure that the child has a two-parent home, and not realizing that in actuality what you're doing is scarring the children for life. And
Mhm.
so there's a whole lot of things that we must identify and look at as it pertains to why a woman would stay in a relationship. I will emphatically state it tonight. Pastor Dr. Wendy Mitchell encourages no one to remain in an abusive relationship.
Right.
I
Amen.
just want to state that emphatically
That's
because
good.
of the casualties that we have to see,
Mhm.
because of all that we see. It's just one unguarded moment. I was in an abusive relationship, and the person was a minister, and he was as cute as ever and charming, would charm the black right off of you. And nobody believed it. When I showed my bishop my bruises at the time, all he said was, wow. The shame that went along with it. And it got to the place where my son and his daughter literally saw the abuse. They were privy to him throwing me on a bed and trying to choke the daylights out of me. And you know when I got out? When I got out, it came to the point where he took the clip out of the gun, put it here, and put the rest of the gun there, and says, I heard you're trying to leave me. Now, what am I thinking at that moment? I am thinking, well, I got to live.
Yeah.
And not only that, my son has to live.
Yep.
It gets you to a place where you come to recognize that I cannot subject my child
Come
to
on.
this type of environment.
That's
Mhm.
it.
Literally, what you're telling the child or children is that this is the norm.
Mm.
Mhm.
And so, to state this fact, domestic violence is a learned behavior.
Mhm.
Yes, it
Yep.
is.
It's learned, it's what you see in the household, whether it's the grabbing of it. Somebody said, well, he didn't really hit me. He just grabbed my hair. Honey, that's abuse.
That's
Yeah.
abuse.
Well, he didn't hit me. He just pushed me up against the wall because he was angry. That's abuse.
Mhm.
That's abuse.
Yep.
Well, the constant tearing down. Oh, look at you. You just had a baby. He's like, look at you. Why don't you go to the gym and lose some weight? That's emotional and psychological abuse
And verbal. Yeah.
and verbal abuse. It comes in
Mhm.
several different forms.
Yeah.
We must be able to identify it, that these types of behavior are not normal. And how do we know that? When we sit at the altar with that person, we made a vow to protect, to love each other, to
Mm-hmm.
care for each other, to provide for each other. Wasn't that the vows?
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you break that, you have broken covenant.
My.
And can an abuser be healed? Yes, they can with therapy. But the funny thing about it is that abusers don't want to go to counseling because in their minds, they don't think that anything is wrong with them. And that right there is a major red flag. Just wave a red flag right about here. Major red
Yep.
flag. Because you must be able to identify, I am hurting my family, I'm hurting my spouse. And it only takes one unguarded moment for
Right.
somebody to lose their life. And it's that serious. Now, the church, there's neither a black or a white church. I'm sorry to say, the church is just the church.
Right.
And the church must identify it. I got a little tickled recently when I saw that video of that fellow who calls himself a bishop. I would not even call his name. Grabbed a woman by the back of her neck while she was walking through the church prophesying.
Mm-hmm.
And he grabbed her, and the rage that was on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm West Indian, I'm
Mm.
Trinidadian, Trinbagonian, but if you would have tried that, I would have beat you down like a road straight. I would have go West Indian on you, you know, in defense of myself and my honor. But at the same time, we have got to be able to identify these narcissistic behaviors amongst us. There is no way that you, as a leader, should put your hand on a woman.
Yes, and
And
we
Yeah.
understand that.
I'm gonna let the sisters know right now. If I see a man doing that to you, I'm coming in the fight. Because I'm not going to sit by and let any man beat down any woman. I'm jumping in.
That's
And
right.
that's
Yeah.
why we have to bring the awareness,
Mm-hmm.
because some people are in domestic violence relationship and don't know that they are in a domestic violence relationship.
Correct.
It become tolerable, they become numb, and they are out of the element, they're out of the rhythm, they were out of the true self, that now it become acceptable. For some women, even in the love making zone, will say, I cannot enjoy making love unless I've been abused before.
Right.
It's a mindset.
Because now they become numb to it. It become a part of the new norm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But again,
You are
Pastor
not
Sean,
made to be in a domestic violence relationship. And
but
it's
Right.
when
not
we
only
have people that
for,
have seen this in the past in their homes, if we've seen this back in our community, some of us in the West Indies have seen this, and we wonder, well, why does she stay? And some of them think that it's normal. And
Yeah.
so it just runs over into their relationship because they've seen their mom get thumped, and right after she gets thumped and her eyes get banged in and her lips busted, they hear them making love by the end of the night, and by next morning it goes back to normal. So somehow in our psyche, in our brains, that is being engrafted as if this is normal. So
Mm.
I'm now an adult, and the same thing some woman would tell you straight up. I don't feel as I'm loved unless he beats me. That's garbage.
Yeah.
Because in their mind they see that the representation from the muscles make that man a man, and they don't
Right.
recognize that they are in a toleration mode and not being celebrated. Minister Hall, I want you to give some strength and some guidance to some man or woman, because man also or men also are recipient also of abuse. Not only men abuse women, it goes both ways. But the numbers show that there are a number of more women are abused than men. But the men that are being abused, they don't have a safety net. And also, when I get back to Pastor Michelle, I want her to close our argument on how we can get to the abuser to break down that partition, because there's always programs and everything for the abusee, but we don't have anything for the person who are the abuser. So we focus on the recipient and we left the abuser to go and abuse many more. So we'll close on that note when we get back to you. But Minister All, there's some woman listening to this program tonight. If you can give them one or two nuggets that they can find strength and that fortitude, and they can be resilient, they can be combative, starting from finding themselves, what can you say to such a woman or man tonight?
Mm. If any individual is finding themselves, first, let me give you a little bit of the statistics. It says in 1 year, remember I said before, excuse me, there are 20,000 phone calls to DV hotlines per day. Okay? So on an average, there are 20 people per minute, 20 people per minute that are physically abused in the US. Within 1 year, we're talking about 10 million women and men. One in four women, one in four men are severely abused by their intimate partner. One in three women and one in four men have some kind of violence, slapping, pushing, shoving. One in seven women, one in 25 women have been injured by intimate partner. So every statistic, and there is more, one in 10 women are raped. There was nothing indicated by for men. One in four women and one in seven men have severe physical violence, the beating, the burning, the strangling. Gun presence increases homicide by 500%. So if there's a gun in the home, by 500%, the increase is homicide. 15% of all violent crimes that has been reported, called into the police department, is for domestic violence. Domestic violence typically occurs between the ages of, mostly between the ages of 18 to 24. So if you have a young woman, probably just running out of college, trying to leave their home, in church, just met a man for the first time, getting to know what it is to be with a man, decides, or a man trying to be with a woman, they're trying to figure out life. They're in church. They're supposed to be a safe haven in church. They're supposed to be able to feel as if once you're in church, anything that happened in church it should be accepted. If a man or a woman finds themselves in a situation like that, please, please let somebody know. You know, if it's easy to stay, and but it's also it's easier to stay than to leave, because of all of the preparation that happen. If a woman is not able to work and she's in the home, say that man stays at home as well, or that woman is put in a basement or in a place where there is no windows that are open. They're just in this place and they cannot do anything other than do what is told by them. They're in a place that they're just stifled, confused. I say, man, if you are in a relationship with somebody and you're getting abused, yes, it will feel shameful because you are supposed to be the dominant party. You're supposed to be the head and the lead. But to save your life, because you never know, a woman can snap as well, take a gun out. 500% is the actual percentage. Okay, 500% more likely for this homicide to occur. You get yourself out there as well. Men, it is okay for you to say that this occurred. You will not be looked upon. You may be looked upon by your friends as being weak. Why didn't you just do something, hit the woman back? Then again, if you do that, the chances of you going to jail first is probably higher. Take yourself out of that situation. Lady, if that is you, I say to you, please ensure your safety first and the safety of your children. If you it's not easy to say you're going to a shelter to live. It's not easy because you're gonna have to leave your environment that you're used to go into a place with a plethora amount of people that you do not know, and you're susceptible to anything in a shelter. It is best to find a friend that you can cling on to, cleave to, that can pray with you, your pastor, your clergy, somebody that can assist you in the process, and leave. Just take away
Minister,
yourself and leave.
Minister Crystal, the same for you. If you want to encourage a young woman or young man that are the end of the tolerance level, they become saturated. They already too much enamored in the pain and in the violence that they're overrun by. And you have to encourage them tonight. They are covering those marks and those bruises with makeups. They are covering it with so many other things. A bee bite me, a malibun to bite me, something sting me, but it's not of the true nature. It's from abuse. And they need the source of encouragement from you tonight. What two ways you can use to encourage them, or two pointers you want to give to them tonight?
Yes. I was talking to a young woman who has about 3 kids, maybe 4, and the conversation started out with about like marrying and knowing who you're marrying before you actually marry them and all that stuff. And she had shared with me that her husband, that she's been married for probably like 20 years. Um, at first everything was fine, and then about 10 years within the marriage, he started to be abusive to her physically, and she didn't know where it came from or anything like that. But she stayed in the marriage because she felt like everything would be fine. But and she prayed. Now, praying is like the key to your answers. However, when it comes to like something that is like, act you um you're getting hit and stuff like that, and he's like, and somebody tells you to pray, you're gonna think they're insensitive, but not but however, this is her way of dealing with this. She prayed and she really asked God, seeks God's face on the wisdom of what to do. So she already had all these kids with her husband, and she decided to stay. And within probably within the 5 years, they had gotten therapy, whatever. And after that time, he didn't change, so she kind of removed herself temporarily so he could figure out what wants to do with his life. And then 2 years after that, he tried to commit his suicide probably like 5 times, and all heap of things. And she just kept praying and praying, and then eventually, um, all of that stopped. They repaired their marriage, and now they're fine. So that's a great testimony and stuff. But that's not everybody's testimony. That may not happen to everybody. And you may hear a testimony like this, and you're like, okay, I'll just stay and I'll wait and ride out the storm, you know. And this time there's no roof because the storm just blew the roof off of your house, and they knocked out the lights and all kinds of things, and you're like, what am I staying and waiting for, you know? Just ask God for the wisdom, you know. Yes, we can tell to say to go, but and or stay, whatever, but it's truly the wisdom of God that we have to do. The law of the lands, you look both ways before going onto traffic. You don't really need the Lord to tell you to do that. You know what to do to get across the street. Pray and go, you know. Pray and go. Pray and walk away, set yourself aside, but use wisdom. If you have a lot of kids, you know, those things can, like what the other amazing panelists we're talking about, and there's a lot to lose, you know. Yes, your life, but the others, you know. I just hear conversations about, oh, I'm staying for the kids. I'm like, okay, one day you will not be able to see your kids because both of your eyes will be gone out of your face, you know. Maybe it'll be hard for you to breathe because somebody just knocked the wind out of you. Like, I understand staying for the kids, but it's you too, you know. You are their parents, father or or mother. It just reminds me of that movie Enough, the Jennifer Lopez character. She had to do everything that she can do to get away from the situation, you know, consider it all. But we have God on our side, you know. So I would say just it's very sounds very insensitive to pray and use wisdom, but we sometimes, not sometimes, all the times we need wisdom in order to know what to do. Because someone can say stay, someone can say go. But what is it that, like, you have to do for yourself? So I would consider really kind of just praying to God. Take yourself out of the situation. Go stay with your mom or your dad, whoever, your brother, your sister for the weekend or whatever it is, and just really, 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 really pray. I was in a situation like that, so I could totally understand, and I really had nothing to lose or anything like that. So my decision was just I walked away and did whatever I had to do, and everything kind of worked itself out where I'm not with the person. But hearing this conversation just kind of pulls me all the way back there. But when we are when it is something that you're physically in and you really feel like there's no way out, the Lord always has a way of escape. That is the one of the best scriptures in the Bible because it shows the person of God, the emotions of God, the understanding of God, that he knows a lot of times we need a way of escape. No matter the situation, there's always a way of escape. You just have to know where to escape. You just have to know, okay, is this, it reminds me of the story about these girls, I think in Ohio, they were all captured by this one man. And one day he left the door open by mistake, and she knew that was the way to escape, the way of escape, because he never leaves the door open, you know? So that moment allowed her to escape. So I pray that God gives you the wisdom to know the way to escape out of these situations at hand.
Minister Giddings, over to you to help someone tonight in their two submission of how they can find a confidant, how they can use sources that are available, like the 1-800 hotline and every other thing else that are out there to utilize. That there is facilities and there also still persons out there that they can find, that they can confide in. There are many confidant. There are many people who are like a vault. When I said like a vault, got to lock in their situation until the rescue is on the way. Minister Giddings.
Well, I know, speaking to that person, I know that as a victim, it may seem as if you mollify the abuser, that eventually you will be able to hold things under wrap, but to understand that an incident will occur. And even with all the apologizing and the promises of I will never do it again, and things will get better, um, the calming down stage, as Dr. Mitchell said earlier, that in the cycle of violence, there is the period where there's the calm and there's the highs and the lows. Um, I know for certain from dealing with tenants that there are times where they might be abused today and may not be domestically abused till next 3 years or next 3 months. There was one young lady that I had to deal with where she was being abused, and the our neighbors were the ones that actually brought it to the forefront, and she and I, we had a conversation, and the bruises were there, and so it was, real that she was actually being abused. And we worked with her. We gave her um the 1-800 hotline for her to call. We sent her to the hospital so that she can get treated there. And we instructed her to call 911 while she's there so they can come and, try to get it to a place where her reporting it can assist with her walking away from that. And at the end of the day, she was so scared that she came back. And when the cops came on site, she was like, "No, I'm not being abused. I was at some point, but no, he's not doing it right now." And I can understand that because of the fear, and just to, we a lot of times we see the surface of things, but we really do not know what's happening way down on the inside. As we've all discussed here tonight, it could be financially it can be financial manipulation. It can be so many different things that abuser is stuck, and or the victim is stuck, and so it's hard for them to leave. But I want to let you know that I pray that you find the strength to leave, because you can leave. And we respect the fact that it's harder than we're actually saying here, because even though so many of us may have had the experience or know someone, you're in it right now and you're going through it for whatever reason. And I just want to say to you that you can make it out. God can make a way, as Crystal said, for you to make it out. There is help out there for you. There are people that are working tirelessly 24/7 to present or to make or to create an environment where you can come to if you need the help that you need. So I just want to implore you to take up the offer, to when you find your way of escape, and just allow God to move you out of that situation, because none of us were created, as Sion said, to be abused. The Bible talks about the husband given authority over his body belongs to the wife. Likewise, the wife body belongs to the husband. But God wasn't really talking about abuse, right? And so it is not right for you to stay in a situation where you are being abused. And so it is my prayer that you will find the strength to come out of that situation.
Yes, and certainly for those who are in the audience that are listening, there is a way of escape. We don't want you to be numb. We don't want you to go in around with the concealed hurt of the abusive that you're receiving and feel that there's no one there to rescue, no one cares, no one concerned, that you're the only one surrounded by a body of water in an ocean by yourself. Feel that you're alone out there. There no one have a listening here for you. I want to tell you there are places and there are persons who want to conceal your abuse until, as I said, there's help on the way. There's one who want to see you to be free. No way you should held hostage against your freedom, held hostage against your joy, against your peace, against your happiness, against you walking in your own voice and enjoying the trueness of yourself. With that being said, Dr. Mitchell, we all focus tonight mostly on the person who are the recipient of the domestic violence and the abuse.
Yeah.
What you have to say to those who still have an understanding, well, I'm talking now about the abuser, who are left alone joyfully to jaywalk, to somersault, to skip and to swim, to our next victim. You know, sometimes there's so much in the numbers of the victim, Minister All, Minister Crystal, Minister Giddings, because many sometimes are by the one abuser have five bodies under his or her belt. What you can say, Dr. Mitchell, to the abuser?
Well, if I can just piggyback for 1 second on what the other said, I hear that everyone was talking to the abusee
Yes.
and speaking about, God making a way. But let us be mindful that, number one, that a lot of these are not in God. A lot of them don't have a relationship with the Lord that they can pray about it or go to God about it. And in that instance, they might not even know how to have an escape plan. I'm going to give this number out. It's the National Domestic Violence Hotline number, 1 800 799 7233. That's 1 800 799 7233. Call that number. They will walk you through, they will lead you as to hatching an escape plan, as to where to go step by step. If you're in God, go to your pastor, find a Christian counselor, find a minister in your church that you can confide in, speak to them, get them to pray along with you, and hatch a plan of escape, knowing that they should be there to cover you and to protect you. Now, as far as the abuser is concerned, I believe that abusers can be helped, but they must want that help. In other words, they must be it must be brought to their attention that what they're doing is wrong within the church. When we find out about an abuser, whether it be a minister or if the pastor is the abuser to his wife, if it's the reverend, whomever, once the church finds out about this person being an abuser, there needs to be a claclan that happens with the ministerial board. This needs to be brought to the attention of all the ministers. That minister needs to be pulled in, sit down, and you know talk to. There needs to be some form of communication. It cannot be, as my former bishop says, wow. I was expecting that he would call both of us, do some counseling, tell him, listen, this is not called for the elders, as we say, and get together and have some sort of a reasoning and whatever, put him to sit down until he gets help, yada, yada. If it's within the church, we have to deal with it. We cannot just brush it off and say, well, that's so and so. He's been like that for the past 3 wives. No, brother, you have a problem and you are going to have to deal with the problem because that's a demon right there that demon has to be evicted.
Yes.
You need counseling. You need to see a psychiatrist. You need to see a psychologist. You need to
Mm,
see a counselor. These
mm,
things are, yeah, pent up things that have not been dealt with, possibly from your childhood, possibly from dealing with the demons of rejection and abandonment, and probably somebody in the past cheated on you. So you want this spouse now to pay the price. You have a problem, sir. And so we're going to have to deal with it within the church. If it's outside the church, we still have to talk to that person. We still have to let them know, listen, what you're doing is wrong. You should not be hurting the people that you love, your spouse, your children. Their lives should not be in danger. They should not be bruised and battered. You need to get some help. Now, if that person is willing to get the help, the situation can be fixed with counseling, with prayer, with time. And in the meantime, that spouse should extricate themselves from that relationship. Go home, go back home to mama. This is the one time I'll tell you, go back home. Go back home to mama. And mama opened the door for her. Amen. Praise the Lord Jesus. That's your child. Open the door for her and the grandchildren without a limit on time until this situation is fixed. There needs to be a time of separation until that person understands my behavior is causing me to lose my family. And if my family is the most important thing to me after God, I will do whatever it takes. I got to be able to find what are those triggers that trigger me to get from 0 to 1,000 that I would want to bang in her face. And let me just say this in defense of the men. Men are being abused. The only reason why there's such a high statistics is because society makes it very hard for a man who's being abused to report it. And so society would make them feel as if, what are you? You're a wuss, you're a whoop, what you're whip, what is going on with you? How you gonna let the woman beat you? You know, what kind of man are you? Man, pull up your socks and act like a real man. You know, so all of this additional pressure that the men have to deal with, plus the shame of having their wives hit them with a frying pan. And as we say in DV circles, the black eye that he got was not from the garage door. It was actually from a frying pan. Now, I know it sounds silly and we might want to laugh, but it is the truth. So we have real men, let's put it this way, who have been raised by women and were taught to never hit a woman, no matter what she does. And so she would take a hammer and knock out his kneecaps and do it, and he would not raise a hand. But at the same time, he would not report her to the police that he is being abused. So we see the flip side of the coin. And so that's the only reason why there's not a higher percentage of men and reporting the abuse, because even the police make light of it. So,
Yep.
on top of dealing with the abuse, they have to deal with the stigmas and the hearsay, them say of people, while they were trying to be real men who would not hit a woman. So, again, once the abuser is willing to receive the help, the situation can be fixed. If the abuser does not think that anything is wrong with him and wants to continue, then this is your notice to exit stage right. Exit out of it because you can pay with your life.
Yeah.
Yes, and we understand in buttoning up this discussion tonight to continue next week is that basically man or woman have to understand that life is one thing we have no control over, is constant change. And in constant change, we have what we call growth. And in growth, you're going to find different perspective. You have different enlightenment, different understanding, also come with different exposure. So what happened in domestic violence is people trying, because one is losing control and one is trying to gain control in whatever facet that is. And it comes out in the form of abuse or domestic violence. I want to encourage every pastor, bishop, and apostle probably listening tonight from the Christian part of life. You need a form men fellowship. You need a strong woman fellowship, because the psychological part, when you're inculcating the growth of the ministry, the growth of your forum and your platform, somebody that is lagging behind will not cope with the changing mechanism. A man may feel he's losing control of the wife he once knew. The woman may feel she's losing control of the husband that she once knew. And we are on a road with a trajectory of domestic violence. With that being said, you are probably not a part of a church or a non-profit organization or anywhere else. You are just confined to the four corners of your wall and you don't know where to go and feel that is your lot. You was told, you're meant to believe and accept that that is your way. And whatever come, that is what it's going to be. I want to tell you, the devil is a liar. There is help, and you were born to be celebrated. With that being said, I want to thank Minister Crystal Dundas, Minister Tashana Giddings, Dr. Wendy Michelle, and Minister Kimon Hall. Thank you for your labor of love on behalf of the Conversation platform. And all of the affiliate, we want to thank you for tonight, sowing to the nation, sowing to the world, and affecting the narrative and to changing the modus operandi of the abusee and the person who also are the recipient of abuse. With that being said, I want to thank you tonight for being a part of the Conversation Motivational Date Night. I would ask you to stay backstage for just 2 minutes or more of your time. We're going to end this podcast, and to everyone, we want to say thank you for riding with us tonight. God bless you.
God bless.